I'm going to bring on an academic as a guest on the program today. Armando Lara. He's a professor at UC Berkeley. He's a Golden Dazer. Him and I have been in touch ever since he became an audience member of this show. And he's brilliant. He knows his stuff. And he also is now a writer covering the Golden State Warriors. He's got a Substack. He joins me next. It's been, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks since the season ended for your Golden State Warriors. I haven't spent a second yet ripping Steve Kerr. I haven't spent a second breaking down the nonsensical madness that routinely has been coming from the direction of the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr. He said some crazy shit after the season ended, and it has not been consistent. He's trying to save face. I'm also going to play a clip from Mike Dunleavy Jr., who, unlike the head coach, is a voice of reason. And I think you're going to like what Dunleavy Jr. said, in case you have not heard the clip already. I don't think you have, because I pulled the clip myself. I have not seen it anywhere else. But most importantly, we're talking Warriors. Armando Lara is going to join the show, and we're gonna hold Kerr accountable. And that's what today's program is, because unlike most other shows, we speak truth. People don't always like the truth being spoken.
You can't handle the truth.
They can handle it. That's the bottom line. Let's bring Armando on. Let's talk some Warriors. Let's break down Steve Kerr's illogical madness. Next, this is the Golden Days.
They always find something to nitpick, and that's because there's expectations for us to win. Leave me alone this summer.
Let's go. In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up.
Well, some people say all. Welcome to the Golden Days. I am your host for the afternoon, Cyrus Saatsaz, or evening, depending on where you're at. Armando Lara is going to join me in just a second. Before we get going, got to give some love to the folks paying the bills for this operation. They sustain us. They take care of us. If you love this program, please show them some love. And more specifically, for our first guest, if you're about to have, let's say, a wedding, if you're about to celebrate, I don't know, an anniversary, you got a birthday coming up, maybe you've got a corporate fundraiser or event coming up, you need some live music. And this is where you should reach out to Decades, an awesome band that is all about making your event super fun. I mean, what's wrong with that? Nothing in my book. They're called Decades. Their website is decadesofficial.com. You can follow them on social media, more specifically Facebook and Instagram at Decades Official. And they exist to make your life better, and more specifically, your event lively and fun. Think of the Catalina wine mixer. What would that look like if Prestige Worldwide was not bringing everyone to tears? Tears of joy, mind you. The Decades could do the same. They are a band that is literally doing this for their profession. This is their full-time job. You cannot be a full-time musician if you're not damn good at it. They cover music from the 50s to today. We're talking Chuck Berry to Katy Perry. They play every red zone rally. Those are the 49ers pre-game festivities next door at Great America. The band, the music you listen to is Decades. They played Eddie D's event in Montana, the man who oversaw 5 Super Bowls for your San Francisco 49ers. They're also Golden Dazers. They're from Chico. They're good people, and they can play your show. Either go to decadesofficial.com or email Kyle@atomicmusicgroup.com. Again, Kyle@atomicmusicgroup.com, and have an awesome event. That's what they do. Decadesofficial.com is the website. Today's episode also brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Last night was game one of the NBA Finals. Riveting, entertaining. Every Sacramento Kings fan is heartbroken. They're literally in the fetal position in a corner of a room right now with their thumbs in their mouth. That is how much suffering is going on in Sacramento because of Halliburton being traded away and winning game one of the finals. And you could have bet on that. Kings fans, if any of you are watching this, make some money to ease the pain of trading away a superstar like Halliburton and win some money with BetOnline. It's not just the NBA Finals that's going on. Baseball season's in full swing. You got the NHL Stanley Cup Finals going on. You've got French Open tennis. You've got golf. There is so much to bet on. You've even got NBA futures, including betting on where Giannis Antetokounmpo may end up next year. You can bet on all that action with BetOnline. They even got a live casino. Go check it out. Enjoy and thank me later. BetOnline, the game starts here. And so does Armando Lara. He joins me next here on Golden Days. Today's show has not one academic, but two. It's the professors. That's what this episode is today. I'm joined by UC Berkeley sociology professor, and I think the study of sociology has a lot of pertinent aspects to it related to the NBA. Armando Lara, he also writes a terrific column on Substack. I love the name of it. Sprewell Was Right. You can follow Armando Lara on threads at Mando_man10. Armando, great to see you, brother. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, Cy. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, we've been communicating, collaborating a little bit, mostly behind the scenes or on social media, but we've been getting to know each other. You're clearly a very brilliant individual, and you know, so I always welcome anyone who brings a high level of critical thinking in terms of analysis with basketball, because it's not a complicated game. Yet you have a lot of people who, despite that, still muck this up and don't get it right. And you follow this stuff closely. Again, you and I believe you have one or two cousins who are also like emphatic sports fans, and so now you have the Substack. Sprewell Was Right. And I brought you on today because we haven't done an episode of Golden Days pertaining to the Steve Kerr media circus that has been a part of his ethos for the last few weeks now. He didn't do this in years past for very good reason, because he didn't have eggs splattered all over his face by a decision that you and I were both saying was obvious. Play the guy who has the talent, the athleticism, and who, contrary to what some schmucks out there keep saying, is not low IQ. He can actually play basketball. We're talking about Jonathan Kuminga. Steve Kerr decides to DNP him the last 3 games of the regular season. He has him completely out of the rotation in the Rockets series until Jimmy Butler gets injured. So slowly Kaminga's getting his groove back. There was the infamous moment where he's interviewed saying, "I found my confidence again," which, again, if you're a head coach and one of your most talented players loses confidence, I don't know how a head coach is absolved from that. I make that make sense. Nonetheless, Kaminga gets his run, shows everyone why we were right about him and why most of these schmucks out there who know nothing except just to believe Steve Kerr's words and repurpose those and echo those as their own words and then act smart after the fact. Well, guess what? He's not as smart as you think he is, which means you schmucks who do nothing except echo his sentiments are also replicating that lack of acumen. So here we are today, and Armando, this is why I brought you on, because we're going to be revisiting this chaos, if you will, of nonsensical madness. But before we get into the whole Kerr putting his foot in his mouth, Kerr, a parabolic ride of interviews that he's done the last few weeks here, which has just been lunacy. Like, we're with mixed messaging, and again, he doesn't do this normally, where after a season, he's making himself available to all sorts of media sources. Yet that's what he's doing right now, largely because he's trying to save face. And before we get to the Kerr comments, and then also Draymond Green, who I have so much appreciation for just how transparent, how honest, how authentic he is. I don't think we know half the stuff going on behind the scenes if he wasn't as transparent as he is. He said some very interesting things on his podcast that we're going to talk about. And one of those involved, for the second time in a year, pushing back on his own head coach. And again, the lunacy of his decision making. But before we get to that, I want to preface, and Armando, thank you for sitting tight during my rant there. I want to preface all that first by playing this soundbite, which I've been wanting to play on the show for a while. I don't think anyone else has taken this clip of Mike Dunleavy Jr. from his exit interview the day after the Warriors season ended. You had Steve Kerr doing interviews. You had Mike Dunleavy Jr. doing interviews. This was a day after the players did their exit interviews. And Dunleavy was asked about the future of the Warriors. And his answer to me reminded me why I have a hell of a lot more faith in this front office and this ownership than the coaching staff. And Dunleavy again was asked about the window, about the present, about the future, about whether or not he's going to go all in this season. And his answer again represents a level of saneness that we're not typically accustomed to when we hear from Warriors leaders. Here was Mike Dunleavy Jr. Oh, let me share my screen. I'm sorry. Here is Mike Dunleavy Jr. In that exit interview. And Armando, I appreciate you being amused by me getting animated. Thank you for that. Here is Mike Dunleavy Jr. At the exit interview. And then Armando, I'd love to get your reaction to this as well. This was an answer that I thought represents sanity.
Mike, when it comes to improving this roster, what's your general philosophy on whether, if a star becomes available, knowing you have already Jimmy, Draymond, and Steph, adding a fourth star or improving with like multiple complementary pieces? I mean, there was a lot of talk before the trade deadline, before you got Jimmy. We didn't want to mortgage our future and make a desperate trade or anything like that. Has Jimmy changed the equation of that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, whether whoever we're trying to acquire or draft or sign or anything, is like, how much does that player make us better? And then from there, what all are we giving up? And we're good giving up whatever it takes. It just depends how good we think that will make our team. And I think the only issue with mortgaging the future is you just don't want to get caught. I don't want to get caught in a situation where we give up a ton, put all our chips in, and then 10 games in the season, we have a catastrophic injury. There's nowhere to go, and then we're stuck for 4 or 5 years. So we got to balance that well. There are maybe going to be some risks where it would be worthwhile to do that, but that's what you got to look at as upside downside when you make these moves.
Mike, are the ages of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy sustainable for a championship run? And do they maybe need to be surrounded around players from more of those bridge ages, around like 30 or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the point now where you got to have an eye of the future down the road. But like this league's year to year, and especially with the guys that we have, it's like our focus is mostly 90% on next season. How do we make this group better? And that can come in a myriad of ways. But yeah, I mean, I would love to get guys that are, you know, in their pre-prime or prime, where they're going to have more years when Steph and Draymond and Jimmy are gone. But at the same time, if we have to get a bunch of 33-year-olds or 35-year-olds that we think can really help us win a championship, like that is the goal. And we will do that, cost permitting.
And one last thing here, because I couldn't find the soundbite of this, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this screen grab of Youngmisik of ESPN, who took over. I'm not muted, am I? No, I'm not. Okay. Of Youngmisik quoting Mike Dunleavy Jr. Again, this was not during that press conference, but it was important. This is important because it kind of follows along with the messaging you just heard. Youngmisik was tweeted this, quote, asked if this is a 2-year window with his 3 stars aligned that way. Mike Dunleavy Jr. said he wants to focus on this coming season. And with Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, it will be all about winning a championship. To summarize the premise here is that unlike the desires of some people, and I guess, and I'm going to guess Steve Kerr would be part of this, they're not going to mortgage the entire future to try and win now. Stephen Curry turns 38 this year. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green turned 36 this year. The difference between Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr was that Popovich recognized these are mortal human beings who age, and at some point their bodies are going to start breaking down, and that's why he gave Kawhi Leonard this bigger role and let him become the face of the Spurs, and they won a championship because of that. I'm just glad to hear this rhetoric from the front office, because all it will take is one Stephen Curry injury and the Warriors become the most uninteresting product on TV. Your thoughts, Armando, on the messaging of the front office contrary to Steve Kerr?
You know, I try to talk to people a lot about if people assume these GMs and these coaches and these players don't reveal much in interviews. You just kind of got to learn to read between the lines. Like it's like 80% what they're not saying. And if you follow the same people, the same journalists, the same guys for a long period of time, you can see the subtle shifts. That's a new statement, what he just said. He just said this coming year. That ain't no 2 years. That ain't no 3 years. He's putting the coaching staff, the core, on notice with that quote. That's what I
as he should be, right? I think. I don't know. That's just me, but it's just
dude. Like, I'm glad you brought this up because I don't think people quite understand the fractious nature of the Warriors organization in the last 4 years. There's a reason the GM quit and didn't re-up the most profitable franchise in the history of the league. He just straight up left.
Yeah.
And like what made this franchise light years was that it was all on the same page in 2014, right? From top to bottom, Lacob, the GM, the coach, the best players, same page, same vision. You're not a winning franchise if you are in the middle of an ongoing power struggle about the right way to win. And, you were talking about the media tour the coach just went on, like people don't like take a step back. Like it's easy to like listen to Kerr and get hypnotized in the like it rationalizing what he did and and you have to listen, you have to give him credit. Like, okay, what is he trying to say? Like he didn't have opportunity to play the right way, it was out of his control, timing was off. But if you take a step back, you have your head coach demonizing your best and only asset as a front office in the public. That happened. That literally just happened.
And we're going to get to that in a second because we're going to go through everything Kerr has been saying, and it's been mixed messaging and then some. And Armando, this is a huge reason why I have you with me today, because you have been following this even more closely than I have. Largely because I've just been detoxing for the last couple of weeks to decompress. Dude, I've never in my life felt exhausted mentally, ever, until like a few weeks ago. Covering this team, trying to interpret all the messaging, like you said, it ain't easy, brother. It is not easy to try to figure all this out. And you're absolutely right that this team was on the same page. They shared the same vision in terms of the players, coaches, and front office until 2022. I feel like that's when all of a sudden you saw the divide. And Bob Myers said, F this. Part of the reason I'm confident Myers said, I'm out, is because of how important relationships are to him, right? Fostering those, building those. How the hell is Bob Myers going to tell Kaminga, hey, man, just sit tight while your coach tries to ruin your life year after year? You can't. How can you be a messenger in that situation? Bob Myers read the writing on the walls and was like, I'm out, dude. This is not something I want to play with. And he said so publicly, like you said, when he was asked about getting a big before the trade deadline a couple years ago, and his response was, well, what's the point of doing that if the coach isn't going to play him, right? And he was gone like a couple months after that. You're absolutely right. And then here comes the Steve Kerr media tour. And again, I'm going to rely on you a lot for follow-ups and clarification, some contextual analysis here. But this was Steve Kerr in the same day as that Mike Dunleavy Jr. interview that we just played, that clip that we just played. The very same day, Steve Kerr took to the podium and was asked about Jonathan Kuminga, because that is now the talking point. And what happens with Kaminga is going to play a massively huge part in what happens with the Warriors this offseason. So this was the Steve Kerr clip the day after, or maybe 2 days after the Warriors got bounced. This was the day after the players did their interviews. And Steve Kerr was asked about Jonathan Kuminga and whether or not Kaminga could be a part of this next season, because he's about to be a restricted free agent. Here was Steve Kerr's answer.
Kuminga's future will be kind of the big ticket item of y'all summer. I know that's kind of a Mike decision and process, but if he were to come back, do you feel like it can work in a way maybe better than it has?
Yeah. I mean, if JK comes back, we will for sure spend the early part of the season playing him with Jimmy, Draymond, Steph. I mean, to me, that would be a no-brainer. We didn't have that luxury this year. We're fighting. We've basically been in the playoffs since the minute we got Jimmy, and that was also when JK got hurt. So we spent, whatever it was, 25 games or so without JK, and went on that run. We found a formula that worked. When he did come back, it was a tough fit, but we also didn't have the luxury of just experimenting and giving that more of a runway. So if JK comes back this year, we have to look at that for sure.
Yeah, no shit. And again, so many questions just from that clip, i.e., did you really like need time to make it fit? Like I feel like he made a very simple situation complex, unnecessarily so. Like, just play the goddamn guy. Now, what we don't have sound of, and this is on me, I apologize. I thought I had this clip on hand, and it is out there, but I didn't have time to edit it beforehand. And this is where, Armando, I really need your help. Just a week after this interview, this press conference, approximately, he sat down with Tim Kawakami, and Kawakami's been doing this in this area. Armando, are you a Bay Area native, by the way?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so you know Kawakami then. You remember him from like the 90s when he was a columnist with the San Jose Mercury News, back when that was a very big thing. Kawakami has entrenched himself in the media scene here. Props to him for doing so. This is not me complimenting his work, but complimenting the fact that at this stage of his career, he's the guy that guys like Joe Lacob and Steve Kerr go to when they feel like it's time to speak to the quote unquote public, right? Via the press. Kawakami's that guy right now. And so good for Kawakami to achieve that. I don't know when the last time was he touched a woman, but sometimes sacrifices have to be made to achieve the levels you're at. Is that cruel? Should I edit that out? Who cares? So anyways, what did Kerr say to Kawakami that contradicted that clip we just heard?
He straight up said Kaminga is unplayable and a player that doesn't have the skill set to win. He doesn't do winning basketball, so he can't play him. That's what he said, which is a total contradiction to the idea that he didn't have time to explore combos. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling to see him flip from one interview to the next. One message was he was unplayable. Then it was, I didn't have time to fit with these guys. Then it was that, which is different than he can't play next to Butler. And then when he could play next to Butler, you saw that shit. He leaked to he was the source leaked to Logan Murdoch, I think it is, with the Ringer. He had this great article that just got, all the national media picked up on it, and it suddenly, right in the middle of it, it was sources say that Kaminga's in trouble because he looked off Curry in a regular season Portland game, a tanking team, one of the worst teams in the league, and that's why he's benched. And that was the night after Kaminga explodes in the middle of a playoff game, playing alongside Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, and then everyone was on. Oh, he can't fit with Curry. He can't fit with Curry. Meanwhile, when he was playing in the regular season, he was exclusively playing next to Curry. That was Kerr's. It's just like seeing it shift over and over again. It tells you something about what this guy's trying to accomplish, the kind of what he thinks is winning basketball, and it's loser ball. And there's no other two ways to talk about it.
And one other thing he said in that interview, which I thought really stuck out to me, is, and there were a few things he said that were pretty crazy, but the quote that stuck out, that and again, I had this clip, and I'm terribly sorry to the audience for not having it, so I'll just read what Kerr said to Kawakami, which is this quote: "It's a tricky one because Kaminga obviously is gifted and wants to play a bigger role and wants to play more. And for me, I've been asked to win. And right now, he's not a guy who I can say I'm going to play 38 minutes with the roster that we have," unquote. That 38-minute clip is what really stuck out, because I feel like that right there represents the divide between a lot of people, myself included, who have been advocating for this kid to play real minutes, and the head coach who has all that power. And then it led to a lot of discourse. You had people like Larry Krueger ignorantly, saying that, Steph and Curry must have signed off on this. And again, not true. I even I did some digging just to confirm that is not true. And then this clip even reinforces that further. This was Draymond Green who came out publicly. Keep a note, it was not even a year ago when Draymond Green came out and pushed back on Steve Kerr's decision to DNP Jason Tatum in the Summer Olympics last year. Draymond Green flat out on his show said, I don't get it. like he's one of the best players in the world. How do you not make that fit? Right. And so it's just been a lot of lunacy and madness, at least from my perspective, in regards to the decision making. Well, here is Draymond. Draymond himself had a chance to address this because, again, he's very authentic, and I think his authenticity is one of the huge appeals of Draymond Green. And he went on his show and addressed that, unsolicited, by the way. And this is why, again, I love Dre so much. He wasn't he didn't have to touch on the subject. He knows what the audience wants. He knows this is the topic at hand. And so with his co-host Baron Davis, he brought up that 38-minute comment and rated on whether or not he agrees with that. Here's Draymond Green.
You're going to have to evaluate Jonathan Kuminga, right? Like, we all know his talent. We all believe he could be. But now you have to make a huge financial commitment. I love JK's answer in this press conference. He said, listen, we all got to sit down. We got to figure it out. It's going to take a while to figure it out. But I appreciate Coach Kerr because he's helped me get here where I am at. And that was such a responsible, great, well-thought answer because it's true. Has it always gone the way you want it to go? No. Most guys are going to tell you, I could do more of this. They don't let me. Like, that's just the nature of what we do, right? So we all have our trials and tribulations, our peaks and our valleys. And the reality is what he said is correct. I love the way he handled it. One thing's for certain, whether it's here or somewhere else, he going to get paid. And he's going to have a very bright future. He proved himself.
Okay, that is not the clip. I thankfully have, that's a good clip too, but that is not the one that I wanted to play. I thankfully have a second link so we could play that sound. Unfortunately, this is from Instagram, so please forgive me for the quality here for the video part of this, but at least we have the sound. And I thought that first one was it. So this is from Draymond's show on Instagram and his comments about those 38 minutes. Draymond, take it away, sir.
I know there's a big fuss about his statement on Jonathan Kuminga. Steve's answer was it's a tricky one because Jonathan obviously is gifted and wants to play a bigger role and wants to play more. And for me, I've been asked to win. And right now, he's not a guy who I can say I'm going to play 38 minutes with the roster that we have, Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, and put the puzzle together that way and expect to win. I take a couple of things away from that statement. One being, he said, with this roster that we have, I'm not sure. He didn't say that Jonathan Kuminga can't play 38 minutes anywhere and be a successful player and be an impactful player. That's not what he said. He said, with this roster, I don't see how that piece fits. I don't know that I necessarily agree because you just haven't seen it. And so I'm not of the mindset that something just doesn't work that you haven't had a chance to see much of. But also in saying that, I think when you look at Steve, one thing that he's shown as a coach is he going to make the decision that he think is best, regardless of what it comes with. If you JK, you got to make the best decision for you. You got to try to put yourself in the best position that you can possibly put yourself in. I think if you're Jonathan Kuminga in this moment, quite frankly, I don't think JK should have a next interview until after free agency. He has nothing to gain from trying to say something back, trying to respond to that. Free agency is happening. You got to figure out what's going to work for you, and that's going to happen anyway. So I would just say, Steve going to believe what he believes. His beliefs has worked.
Well, until it hasn't, right? Until it hasn't. And his beliefs, and again, this is where if you actually pay attention to the nuance, right? The beliefs in 2018 in the Western Conference Finals, those beliefs involved playing Swaggy P and Quinn Cook over JaVale McGee and David West. And that series went to 7 games when it should have been over in 5. Funny how that sounds familiar to this year's first round of the playoffs when Steve Kerr again played his guys over what makes sense. I would call it common sense, given in basketball size means a lot. But you heard right there, Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, they've gone to wars with this guy. They have like 11, 12 years history together. They're at a point in their lives where they're not going to question their head coach. They've won 4 championships together. That was so revealing in terms of how the players feel about their head coach, the 2 stars, more specifically Draymond. And I know Steph wasn't quoted, but I'm guessing his sentiments are very similar. What was your takeaway from that, man? Because I thought that was eye-opening.
It totally was. I had 2 reactions to that. One, Draymond's subtle way of talking, like he had to like choke down a swallow before he said, "I don't necessarily agree," and so that like small little clip, if what wasn't shown in that was like followed by like 5 minutes of calling Steve Kerr a legend and how great of a coach he is. But if you just notice like the criticism and then the airtime to the
it's his people who edited that, by the way, so not us, which I think says something too, right? I mean, they're like, forget all the praise, we don't need that.
And I think I remember when Kruger said that about the Steph not approving or Steph approving the thing, and that's what this Draymond clip made me think about, because this core, they have known one way to win, and this kind of 3-point volume thing, and the way it's always operated there is we handle the court and our coach handles the rotations. That's been a thing. There's been 3 or 4 times when they've had to step in and say, we need the lineups changed. And it's been, they talk about it being collaborative. One of them was the beginning of last year when Draymond Green, and this was reported by Kawakami and Slater, they heavily implied that it was Draymond that pushed Kerr to start Jonathan Kuminga in the starting lineup. And I don't mean, if people kind of forget, like that was 4 games where Jonathan Kuminga and Wiggins were starting with them, and I think Wiggins was at shooting guard. They went 4-0, and in the first quarters it looked a little wonky, and so Kerr went away from it. But no one really pointed out that they like dominated in the third quarters, and there were like 30-point blowouts. And that, if I think about that moment to this interview, Draymond is a believer in playing alongside Kaminga as a defensive wing, and that Kaminga can do the winning things. He does rebound at a 6.6 per 36 minutes. He just needs minutes, and he'll get rebounds. You can switch things. He's a ceiling raiser, not a ceiling magnifier, not a floor raiser. And Draymond knows that, and I think Curry's kind of like, don't rock the boat. We need team unity. I don't want to question the coach. Just kind of keep moving forward is kind of that's the way I see that dynamic. One of the factions, which being the vets.
And I saw another report. I think it was Anthony Slater who reported that he heard behind the scenes that Stephen Curry does not want distractions this year, and that was related to the idea of maybe re-signing Kaminga and then trading him 6 months later. Like Steph doesn't want that. Like Stephen, like in Stephen Curry's mind, if this report is true, and Slater's been good about his reports, that, and this leads to my prediction, which is, and it could be wrong, and these are just predictions, but my guess would be they re-signed Kaminga, and Steve Kerr, who again has gone on this parabolic roller coaster, because after those statements, he did more interviews. I forgot who the third interview was. I forgot who the third person was he spoke with, but he then backtracked off those comments and then said once again that he thinks Kaminga could be a full-time, member of this team in terms of his role. And I forgot who the third person was he interviewed. I know he sat down with Tolbert for a little bit.
Tolbert, he was on 95.7 The Game, another radio show.
He did a second interview with him, correct? Yeah. And there was an interview there where he again, it was like 1 minute right after the season ends. Yeah, Kaminga could play, absolutely. Then he said, call me 38 minutes. Are you out of your mind? No. Then it was the game. It was his former Arizona teammate, his buddy Tolbert. Yeah, and it's just been like this. One interview he'll praise Kaminga. One interview he'll say he can't play 38 minutes. Then in the next interview he'll play him again. You had Festus Ezeli tweeting after the Game 5 loss to Minnesota to end the season, play Kaminga. You've had DeMarcus Cousins, who came out publicly and criticized his former head coach, Steve Kerr, when it comes to his handling of Kaminga, saying he ruined the relationship. So we shall see what happens, but it is not flowers. It's not roses in terms of Steve Kerr at this point. I do think his reputation has taken a ding. Would you agree?
Yeah, God has bled. That's the way I see it. The local media is not talking about it, but the national media is, and it like there's you had Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons early on in the postseason kind of call it like, what are you doing, man? Benching like this guy that you obviously need to like build something with if you're going to win a title. It's like that was a big moment, because if you watch Zach Lowe's subsequent podcast, every time it came up, he brought on Logan Murdoch, and he was ready to like go into it, and he stopped. It was like the weight of Kerr's presence like stopped Zach Lowe mid-sentence, and he goes, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm done with that topic. I don't want to deal with it, because I swear to God, they probably got a shit ton of call outs from Warriors land about the fact that they contradicted the coach. It wasn't just him. Gilbert Arenas has been just ripping into the Warriors about this. And not just about Kaminga, but just playing loser ball. It's not like you're playing better alternatives. Yeah. And,
that's been my gripe, right? It's like, okay, you as a head coach, Steve Kerr, great. You as the head coach have decided Kaminga's at this point through 4 years is not someone you could play 38 minutes to win, even though there is no evidence that supports that argument. Every time he actually does play, they're winning and he's producing. So again, the logic of it makes no damn sense. And that's where, at least that's my peeve and issue with this. But yeah, I mean, he does things his way. You brought up the fact, and I want to let you rant, brother, because you have a lot of opinions about this, and they're educated opinions. That's why I love bringing in fellow academic on this show. Dude, this guy was playing Anthony Lamb serious minutes. This guy was playing Klay Thompson serious minutes when everyone could see he should not be playing over 30 minutes. That the Sacramento Kings playing game, the perfect point of example there, where he was 0 of 10. Take it away, brother. Like you're seeing obviously Kerr with a preference for these role players, with certain specific players. He has his favorites, dude. What's your interpretation of all that?
He doesn't know his own team. Like, the scouting evaluation is dog shit. I mean, I don't know if I can swear on this, but there's no other way to call it, man. Like, playing three connectors, quote unquote, at all times. Like the defense knows exactly what the Warriors are trying to do. The Warriors have the most predictable offense in the league. Like, this idea that the motion is like throwing people off now, it's not. Like, Steph Curry's lucky to see a shred of daylight in the playoffs. Has anyone mentioned that they just stopped doing the pinch post in the playoffs? No one's mentioned that. I mean, they spent all year trying to like figure out how to get pods open on the pinch post, and it was just gone in the playoffs. I mean, why is that? It's because like the league has caught up to this innovation that really worked back in the day.
Correct.
And I think back to two instances that help me make sense of this. So Reggie Miller in 2004, 2005, and Kobe Bryant in 2011, 2012. End of their careers, late 30s, two different cases. And I think about that with Steph and Kerr and like where this could go. Reggie Miller took a step back and his usage went down. They started throwing the ball into Jermaine O'Neal. They had Ron Artest. They were going to win the championship, but the malice in the palace happened. Fast forward, Kobe Bryant. My favorite thing of that period was what I used to call the Andrew Bynum stat. A guy wide open with his hands 3 feet from the rim, and Kobe just chucking 25, 30 shots a game, playing 45 minutes, this like 35-year-old. And I remember screaming like, I mean, I can watch objectively. I don't need to be a fan, but it's like the media started inventing the Kobe Bryant assist, which was like a missed shot that Andrew Bynum got and dunked it. And, what happened? He got hurt in 2012. He played his ass off to get to the A seed or something like that, and then
correct. Well, and just to add some context, that was the season where they added Steve Nash, right? And when I remember when the Warriors added Chris Paul a year ago, it's such an easy thing to forget. That's what I thought of. Is like, oh great, now they're doing the Lakers thing where they're just grabbing these old pieces and putting it together. Because you're right, the year that Kobe blew his Achilles, that was when Dwight Howard was a member of the Lakers as well, and they still made the postseason. They didn't do shit, obviously, because Kobe was out. But yeah, 2012. But wasn't that the season where OKC made the finals, and that was kind of like the official end of the Lakers era? Like Phil, I think got canned after that. And side note, great coaches can get fired, and it's not the end of the world. Phil Jackson did get fired multiple times in his career. But yeah, so what you're saying basically is that Steve Kerr. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. That Steve Kerr is a one-trick pony. His whole offense is let's make this about Stephen Curry. Right. And Eric Pincus was on the show just the other day bringing this up as a defensive Kerr as well, where, you build the system around one player. But the problem is when that one player turns 38, not to mention like he has to sit down sometimes. He can't play 48 minutes. And he's at a point in his career where he can only play 30. You saw what happened in that Timberwolves series when he gets hurt. Like, what do you do? What's your answer when your one system, the one player that is built for, is out? What's your plan? He has no plan. There is no alternative. He just suddenly is like a deer in the headlights when that happens. It just sits there. You're the great call on the parallel to 2012.
The system is Steph Curry needs to score 35 a game and sometimes 50 to win. That's the system. That's the getting lucky. That's the bailing out. And he's been able to do it, but has he actually? They've missed the playoffs twice in the last 3 years, right? Or
twice in 4 years, correct?
Right, and they lost in the second round pretty handedly twice now. Like, things change, and my idea of this is, hey, okay, I have some dominant wings on my team. I got guys that can get Wiggins, Kaminga, and now Jimmy Butler that can get to the line. 2 of them can get to the line 15 times a game. Let's reorient this a little bit. Let's save Steph Curry's legs till the fourth quarter and let him go off instead of put this 80% of our usage around one player. I mean, people think about this as sacrilege, but they're not winning the way they're playing right now. Teams have caught up in 3-point percentage and pace. It's not a big advantage like they have. There was a moment in the playoffs, man, the point of the offense was to try to get Quentin Post a 3-pointer.
Yeah, right.
The ball, guys were just dribbling into the lane, pass, and it's how can we get Quentin Post a solid look? That's the offense you have with the 3 connectors. And they're not those guys aren't good. Buddy Hield, Podensky, they're not good enough defensively to carry you through that. To carry you through shooting, I don't know, 30% or something like that. It's loser ball. That's why I call it loser ball. It is. There's no other ways to put it.
Well, you're absolutely right, man. And I'm trying to find the soundbite here because Kerr made this quote. Let me see if this is it right here. I'm doing my best to here we go. I think this will work because Steve Kerr was asked about the team's offense and whether or not he's going to make some changes to it, right? And Kerr laughed it off. His response was Stephen Curry's like the sun in our offense, which, and again, we'll talk about it in just a second because I found, thankfully, that clip. Let's play that. This was also the day of the exit interviews. And here was Steve Kerr when asked about the team offense and whether or not adjustments need to be made for next season. Here's Kerr.
Here's what I know. We have Steph Curry on our team, who is one of the greatest players of all time. He's also maybe the most unique superstar of all time. What makes him special is his on and off ball prowess. And so the best way to maximize Steph is to put him in pick and roll and then to have him fly off screens. And I think that's been proven, over the last decade, how powerful that can be. And he's our son. This is a solar system. He's our son, and you're not going to duplicate Steph anytime soon. And so any talk of Do we need to change our offensive system? To me, is kind of laughable. Like, what does that mean? So let's not run Steph off screens. Let's not put Steph in pick and roll. I'm not even sure how to respond to that, honestly. It's like what we've done has been incredibly powerful. Steph is, again, one of the all-time greatest players, playing at the peak of his power still, I think, or very close to it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And anything else would be a disservice to our team.
Again, I've labeled this man obtuse. I feel like that's the best way to describe him without being overly insulting, even though that is an insulting characterization. But he's stubborn. He has a very one-track approach. It worked in 2014. It was brilliant to instill a system that maximized Stephen Curry. I will never criticize what he did at the beginning of his tenure. But now, at this stage, he turns 38 this year. You just saw what happens when you don't prepare for alternatives. Never mind the fact that I thought it was laughable that Steve Kerr brought up that, I'm not going to call pick and rolls for Stephen Curry. When do you ever call pick and rolls for Stephen Curry? I never see that. I feel like your offense would be 10 times better if you actually called that setup. Never. Speaking of pick and rolls, you don't think a Kaminga Steph pick and roll would be effective? You don't think Kaminga can be maximized 38 minutes a game and playing the pick and roll with Steph and Curry? But we never see the pick and roll. That clip infuriated me. How did you respond when you heard that? Because it was right 10 years ago, but he's turning 38 this year. You got to have alternative plans. And never mind the hypocrisy, given he doesn't actually instill the pick and roll. That would be nice, but we never see it. It was crazy.
Somebody should have just asked him if, hey, what did Pop do when what would you have told Pop if he had said, I'm going to keep posting up Tim Duncan 25 times a game, even though I have Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili just sitting there? What in what world do you need to stop innovating? He likes to say this is just a game. This is like fun. Dude, this is $1 billion business.
Yeah.
You gotta you can't just get propped up on what you've done in the past. I know a lot of these people watch football, but what happens when a football coach innovates for a few years and the rest of the league catches up? What happens to that coach?
Well, and speaking of that, Bill Belichick infamously was always of the mind that you don't force a system onto players. You build a system around the talent of the players you have. So he was willing to adjust. He was malleable in that regard, and Kerr is clearly not.
Oh man,
starting to but yeah.
No, dude. That stuff blows my mind. The amount of things you can do with Kaminga, Wiggins, Butler, and the ball in their hand, with Steph running off a pick on the backside, or the time rejecting the screen, big ball handler, getting into the lane, and having Curry run around the backside of that. The amount of things you could build in and practice. The original sin of last year was I knew the whole thing was going to be a shit show because Kerr was not talking about offense when they were in Hawaii. He was talking about, he wanted to improve their defense. That was great, but there was no we need to build a system that is centered around Kaminga and Wiggins and save Steph's leg so he can go off in the fourth quarter. That's the way you extend this guy's career. That just total laziness. Total laziness. Yeah. I've never seen a lazier coach. My favorite thing was Andre Iguodala recently was asked recently, how do you compare Spo to Kerr? Because he played for both of them. He made the finals with Spo.
Yeah.
Right? This happened a few months ago, and he kind of stopped for a second. He's twinkle in his eye. It's all about what's not said. And his answer to that question was, Coach Spo is the most prepared coach I've ever played for. And he didn't say, he said Kerr's like a fun guy. Like that.
Well, and again, that just confirms even more so. And DeMarcus Cousins is the only former player of Kerr's who has echoed the sentiments you just said, which is that Kerr's laid back, right? You've heard him being labeled as a player-friendly coach. And the reason why he's labeled like that is because of how quote unquote chill he is, right? You're absolutely right. His strength is in making his players happy as long as they follow his rules, right? I mean, I don't think Kaminga and
I don't even think it's true anymore, man.
yeah, but
He ain't no players coach. It's bullshit.
But I've been saying on the show for years that Mike Brown, his departure was going to play a massive, was going to have a massive impact on this team because Mike Brown is a workaholic. Like Mike Brown was the guy sleeping on the couch, like spending days at a time at the practice facility, scheming, working with individuals. He's a grinder. Steve Kerr's on a grinder. You're absolutely right, man. Like Steve Kerr is a guy who just wants to, sit in his throne and, just make sure his kingdom is happy. And if anything's amiss, he'll maybe say something, but just, kick back and just let the chaos ensue. And that's not coaching. That is not coaching. That is managing. That is not coaching.
I try to check myself a little bit, so I'm not getting too only seen through this lens. And the thing that comes closest to me about Kerr's style that's a positive is what Draymond has always said. But if you just follow the logic a little bit, it's actually a massive negative. And that's that he says specifically, Draymond has said this, Coach Kerr said this, not to coach to the opponents, to just play our game during the regular season. And then when you make the playoffs, we're going to level up. Draymond says, Coach Kerr's really taught me how the playoffs are a different game, and you level up and you scout. And, I don't know if you remember in the media this year, right before the playoffs, it was suddenly 3 days of, this is Kerr's favorite time of the year. They're playing meaningful games and they can get in the lab and they're going to spend the next 48 hours scouting Rockets, and they're going to come up with a thing. And now's the time to prepare. And people like the other coaches are reading that we prepare every game all year.
Yeah, all year. Exactly.
And but I check myself because it's Draymond says that, and that's true. There are leveling up. They do game plan over 7 games. They figured out the Celtics in 2022. That was great. Draymond did it. Iggy's was in the middle of that season. Middle of that series, we knew we had the Celtics because we figured out how to play it. It's like a puzzle. That's that playoff Draymond. It's the puzzle, but it's not working anymore. They're barely making the playoffs. They made the second round this year. They were, I hate to break it to the Warriors fans, but they were a Ja Morant injury away from not making the playoffs.
Yeah, good call on that.
They lost to the Clippers in the play-in, and with Kaminga on the bench. And
they lost to the Spurs with Kaminga on the bench.
That it's the DNPs, they lost to the Spurs. That's right. I forgot about that. And they were gonna lose to Ja Morant.
There's no justification for it. To DNP Kaminga those last 3 games and to pretend that you don't need him, it's again obtuse. It's infuriating, man. I
recently watched I think it was the highlights of Kaminga's 35-point game against the Rockets. He played Sengun off the court.
Good call on that. Yeah, Jabari Smith was the center for a lot of the game because of that. You're right.
He could not guard Jonathan Kuminga at the rim. It was a effing joke.
Yeah.
And to see stuff like that, and then just to hear he's unplayable is I'm not even talking about it as me. I'm like, if you're the owner of this $1 billion, you took out a $350 million loan, high interest loan to get through COVID. You're still paying that off. And your coach is messing with this team like this.
That's crazy.
There's no doubt in my mind that there's only 1 year left for this little plan. There's no doubt in my mind why they said that, because it's loser ball.
It is, and again, the front office, I imagine, is they're shaking their heads, they're scratching their heads, they're maybe pulling some hair out. Like this cannot be easy on them.
Man.
And I am fascinated to learn what they do this offseason. I'm riveted to find out what they're going to do. I'm trying to. There's some report here. Monty Poole from NBC Sports Bay Area is reporting that the Warriors are very likely to hang on to Kaminga this summer, and they're not expected to move him. Which makes, and again, when you look at the finances, it makes perfect sense if that's what they end up doing. When you, like you said, going back to the very beginning of the show. Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s comments. Like you're not going to just mortgage everything for a bunch of individuals now in their late 30s. By the way, I found that clip of Andre Iguodala. Let's play that. He was on a show called The OGs Show. It's hosted by Udonis Haslem and Mike Miller. So he was with his two former Heat teammates when the topic of Spo and Kerr came up. And let's hear Iguodala in his own words answer that. Here is Iggy on his two coaches.
See it.
4 on 3.
I see it right now. I can see it already.
We got 4 on 3. Two guys on staff, and then we got 4 on 3 in the backside. And then Spo, a lot of the things that I do post-career is like rooted in Heat culture, where it's like, end of the day, if you work harder than your opponent, the more likely you're going to win.
Yeah.
Now, there's some residuals to it you got to watch out for, and you got to make sure you cover for it. Because Steve was more like carefree, spirit-free. We're going to come in, listen to some music, great vibes.
Yeah.
Steve is like, man, I want you to come here happy every single day. Like, this should be your escape. And the Heat culture is like, nah, we're going to make this the hardest possible situation.
Yeah.
The game going to be easy.
Yeah.
We couldn't wait for the games.
Yeah.
Man, when is the game going to come? The game is so much easier than practice. And so, but one thing about Spo is probably the most prepared coach that I've ever seen.
Yes. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
He's more detailed.
There you go. And that just confirms everything you just said in terms of the difference. And look, the laid back thing I think is great if you have a veteran group who doesn't need hands-on coaching, who doesn't need
4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great if you have 4 Hall of Famers, and anything works. I mean, hell yeah, we could be laid back. We throw the ball. Who wants to shoot today? Like,
yeah, but when you got young pieces, and when you don't have this roster that's just stacked, where any decision you make, it doesn't matter because you have Steph and Curry winning games for you. Yeah, now you got a coach, and I loved hearing that. That was such a stark difference. And the Steve Kerr thing, he's very charming. He, in terms of winning over the media, he's done a masterful job of that, because every single individual in the media, myself included, who has ever met him, who has interviewed him, comes away from it feeling good, right? He'll smile. You're a sociology professor, as well as anyone, the power of aesthetics, right?
Shared culture.
He looks the part, dude, and that goes a long way, but this program ain't about perception. This program is about objective reality. And the objective reality is a lot of what he does just makes no damn sense. And it doesn't translate to winning basketball. And like you said, after 2022, man, 4 years since the championship, they made the playoffs twice. Both those times they got pushed to 7 games in the first round, barely escaped, needed Steph's heroics, got their asses kicked in the second round. And then the other 2 seasons, I'm sorry, it's been 3 years. And then I forgot that so it was 3 years, 2 playoff appearances, 1 no playoff appearance. And then you have the pre-championship, those 2 years where you had guys like Brad Wanamaker and Mike Mulder. And you look at almost any year where this team is not absolutely stacked, and you're going to see really random mofos getting heavy minutes. And that's Steve Kerr basketball, man. It's just lunacy.
I would love. I have to get going, but I would love to talk about those 2 years, like playing Klay Thompson.
Let's do it next show.
Not doing Anthony Lamb.
We'll do another show.
Yeah, I would love to talk about this summer.
Before we go, promote your Substack again.
Yeah.
Fantastic name. Sprewell Was Right. You might get some heat for that because the man did choke out his head coach. But I'm all about getting laughs in this world. I don't subscribe to the oversensitive group. So love the name. Awesome. What's it about? What are you writing? And anything else you want to promote?
Yeah, this summer I'm just gonna write. You're gonna get 1 post a week about how Kerr is failing Stephen Curry the last 4 years. Like every week, I'm gonna lay it out. We are been a Warriors fan. Sprewell and Weber taught us never choose the coach over the player. NBA 101. That's it. We know that.
I hope Tom Brady and Bill Belichick taught people that. I mean, this has been a lesson that's been taught time and time and again. You don't pick the coach. You don't. The Warriors should have learned that with Nelly and Chris Webber.
There's plenty of coaches. Sometimes you just got to hold your own nuts. You don't need Coach Kerr to like make you feel better. There are other coaches. We'll be just fine. We'll be just fine. I'm talking to you, Lacob.
Armando, are you excited? And I know this may sound weird, but are you excited about the post Stephen Curry era of Warriors basketball? And what I mean by that is you have so many people who are fans of the Warriors almost entirely because of Steph.
Oh, yeah.
You have a lot of people covering the Warriors almost entirely because of Steph. When Steph retires, and again, this is going to be a dark day, man, because he's easily the greatest Warrior ever. You know, if you watch the show consistently, you know how much I love the man. He's incredible. But when that time comes where he hangs it up, now we're going to find out who actually is a Warriors fan. Now you're going to find out who actually loves basketball. And it's going to get back to a point where I think it's going to be really fun. We're going to be studying the development of players. Yep. We're going to be studying, you know, who the next Steph is going to be, who's going to take over this team. I think those are going to be fun conversations. This is what I'm trying to say. It's going to be fun to cover this team when there isn't a sun that everything orbits around. And again, I mean, absolutely no disrespect to Stephen Curry saying that. I'd be happy if he played forever, but the reality is he's going to turn 40 in a couple of years. And there's going to come a period of Warriors basketball post Stephen Curry. Unlike most people, I'm actually a little excited about that. What are your thoughts?
I can't wait. I mean, growing up, the draft day was the greatest day of the year. That was the day. It was
until they made
much fun, man. Like it's like, oh, how are we going to mess the draft up this year? Like, who are the guys we're not picking? You know,
exactly.
It's going to be like that again. It's going to be fun as hell, man. I think it'll be better this time because the front office does know what they're doing. They are picking the right guys.
I agree.
They got to Billy being the coach. They got to be better at it. They got to be better at Billy being the coach. They got to get his guys out of there.
I love that reference. The fact that Billy Beaning has become it's a verb? Is it a noun? I don't know what you call it, but how you label it. But I love the fact that it's a thing. Yeah. It's an actual a verb itself. Billy Beaning. You got to Billy Bean the coach, and the fact that you have a coach that you have to Billy Bean, I think, is all you need to know in terms of the situation at hand. We'll bring you back on soon because I'd love to. I'm happily bringing any hardcore basketball junkies on this program, and you clearly are one of those. Let's talk about those 2 years before the last championship because there's a lot to examine that I feel like people have not examined enough. We have a whole summer. We're still on hold waiting for, all the big moves to start happening. Before you go, do you have to run this second? Are you late?
I might get kicked out of this room.
But go. Okay, yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about the NBA Finals because the fact that the Pacers won Game 1 is mind-blowing to me. But you might get kicked out.
We called it, man. My cousin Andy, he's on my Substack too. He called me the day before. He's like, hey, man, what happens when the Thunder stop getting calls? Honestly, that's what happened to them last year. They got calls in the Western Conference Finals, and they're not that good. They're not that good.
And another thing that stuck out to me, look at what happens to this team when they're not blowing the opposition out. Like every time you make it close, you've got a shot. A lot of their players tighten up in these fourth quarters. So
I think there is going to be so much player movement this summer because the Pacers making the finals and possibly winning. Every team knows they're not that far away.
Yep.
They just need one or two guys. That's what makes the Kerr thing even more ridiculous, but they're not that far away. And you're going to see some crazy shit. Wendy and Shams already know there's something happening. It might be KD, the Knicks, Giannis. Keep your eye on Jokic. There's some stuff. Kaminga's going to have to come after that gets worked out.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And we'll be here for it. Armando, thank you, brother. I'll bring you back on soon. Your shit. And that's all I can ask for in a guest. So thank you, man. Thank you so much. And you can follow Armando Lara on Threads at Mando_man10. Subscribe to the Substack. Sprewell Was Right. Thanks, Armando.
All right.
And that was Armando Lara. He's going to be a regular guest of the program. I had to get that out of my system. Since the end of the season, we haven't spent a second until today's show talking about Kerr and all the mixed messaging, the messaging in general since the season ended. He deserved to get ripped for the way he managed this team's minutes at the end of the season. Never mind the last few years. So he got ripped. And thanks for, hopefully you appreciated that. And if you love Steve Kerr, I'm sorry if you got offended, but sometimes the truth is not pretty. And when it comes to Steve Kerr and a lot of the decisions he has made this year, they have not been pretty. They just haven't been sensical. They haven't been right. We shall see what happens. But anyways, Armando Lara, thank you. To the audience, thank you. We'll be back at this soon. I got some great guests coming up. Again, Rick Barry's a regular guest of the program. Tim Hardaway, Mr. Run TMC, is going to be on the program soon. Very excited about that. Matt Barnes, We Believe, and the 2017 Warriors. Hopefully he'll be on the show soon. That's how the summer is going to go. We're going to have guests when big things happen. We'll obviously go live immediately. But it's summer. Hope you're enjoying it and hope you enjoy the program. We're done. Back soon. Bye-bye.